Alright, so if you've ever played any sort of tactical shooter with an economy system, then chances are you know what it means to save your gun. When a round isn't necessarily going your way, sometimes players will opt to go run and hide so that they can keep their weapon for the following round. Typically, players will prioritize saving larger, more impactful weapons because they hold a higher value, which can lead to some pretty heroic clutches when all you've got is a measly little pistol and a dream.
Yeah. Oh my god, he's knifed him, and he's gotten away with the AWP. I'm starting to get nervous. Calling well above his years, clearing corners. Oh no! You're an animal! Heroic have done it, and I just can't believe it!
But in the world of Valorant, one update back in 2020 changed all of this. In an effort to make the game more exciting, Riot altered the amount of money that players receive when they save. The hope was that it would encourage players to go for that sweet clutch and overall just make the game more exhilarating for spectators. But did it actually work as intended? Is saving worth it in Valorant? Well, today, we're gonna find out. Alright, so I know that most of you League players out there probably don't even consider saving in your Valorant ranked games. It's boring and weird, and most of you probably don't even understand the benefits of doing so. But should you? You see, back in October of 2020, a Valorant update was released that changed the game's economy system forever. Now, it didn't change the prices of any of the weapons, but it did change the amount of money that one could receive after the end of a round. This update came only 1 month after Riot raised the price of the operator from 4,500 to 5,000 credits, and also followed changes to the maximum amount of credits that a player could hold. Prior to these changes, Valorant's pro scene looked a hell of a lot different than what we know today. Many teams would run double op setups, and once a team got a lead, it was pretty hard for their opponents to make a comeback. This was back in the heyday of CT-sided split, where if you got 2 to 4 rounds on attack, you were happy. With a credit cap of 12,000 credits, it was extremely easy for a team to just run away with a match. So let me break down how things used to look when you saved. Before these 2 patches, if you saved your gun on defense and your opponents managed to detonate the spike, then you would receive 1,900 credits the following round. Attackers who lost but survived the round without detonating the spike would also receive 1,900. If you have somebody like Yay or CNET on your team, then you're sure as shit saving that operator. But in patch 1.11, Riot wanted to make players reconsider this choice. After the update, players who saved on defense but lost the round due to the spike detonating now only received 1,000 credits. And the same went for attackers who saved without planting the bomb. Now, if you believe in your chances of going for that 1vx clutch and you have enough to buy for the following round, then f it. You should probably go for it. Which is exactly how Riot wanted you to think after the update. Prior to the release of the patch, Valorant's co-lead game designer, or Kane, spoke to Ryan Central, and this was his reasoning behind the change.
We always want players driving towards action and driving towards their objectives, and these are, generally speaking, lighter touch changes. They're not super heavy. They shouldn't feel very punitive, but it's more about encouraging players to have to make hard decisions in certain scenarios where they might just default to saving their gun.
So what Riot is really saying here is they got sick of watching y'all rat in corners and farm exit frags and wanted to punish you for saving in certain situations. The question, of course, is how exactly does this change make Valorant differ from the godfather of TAC FPS economies, Counter-Strike? And is it an upgrade to what we deal with in CS? Now, both Valorant and CS include the crucial pistol round, which we actually covered in a previous episode of Cracked. You should totally go check it out if you haven't already, But beyond the pistol round, there are actually a lot of differences between both games' respective economies. First off, CSGO's economic system is just deeper and more complex. You get bonus amounts of money for each kill depending on which weapon you are using, while in Valorant, you only receive a fixed 200 credits for each and every kill. This is why knifing someone in Valorant is genuinely kind of pointless. In CS, it nets you like half a rifle. In Valorant, it nets you a toxicity report. But where the games really start to distance themselves from one another is with respect to loss bonus. You see, in Valorant, a team can achieve max loss bonus after only 3 rounds. After a single round loss, you receive 1900 credits, and after 2 consecutive round losses, you receive 2400 credits. Once you lose 3 straight, your loss bonus caps out at 2900 credits. But in CSGO, loss bonuses range anywhere from $1,400 to $3,400, and 5 consecutive losses are needed to hit the max loss bonus. Of course, with a higher money cap and overall longer games, I think this makes sense. What this means is that in CS, when your economy breaks, it can completely change the game. Getting eco'd is even more of a disaster, and when your money is like really up, you feel really far ahead. But saving on T side in Counter-Strike is very unforgiving. If you save and lose the round due to the time running out, then you will not receive any sort of loss bonus at all. And there's a reason for that. Not only is the point of T-side to attack, but crucially, the weapons are cheaper. The biggest difference between CS and Valorant is that whereas Valorant's buy menu is mirrored across both sides, CS is constituted in such a way that each side has access to different weapons. And it just so happens that the CT side is, on the whole, a shitload more expensive. CTs famously have to fork up either $2,900 or $3,100 for an M4, while Ts can secure an AK for only $2,700. Mollies are also $600 for CTs, but $400 for Ts, just as the MP9 is $1,250, but the MAC-10 only $1,050. Overall, these economic differences make saving on defense not only much more common in Counter-Strike than in Valorant, but downright necessary. Hell, there are times when CTs have to double save, which is something that we just don't see in Riot Shooter. Not to mention that half buys and eco rounds feel significantly more winnable in Valorant. Guns like the Frenzy and Spectre are still pretty busted, which allows teams to pull off thrifty rounds that you just don't really see in CSGO.
They were on Spectres. This was going to be a harder round for them to convert, but Marco's making a go of this. Hold on. And now, Marco outdoes a rifle, apparently. This is still not over yet. RB, what is happening?
The economy plays a much less, dominant role in Valorant because of, the lower cap, and then the fact that you never have to double save. Thrifties are absolutely insane. So another reason why pistol rounds aren't so important in Valorant is because I've seen so many thrifties in Valorant, and you don't see that many ecos in CSGO. You don't see that, it's rare, how often you see Glocks win against AKs. But in this game, classics are the best thing to ever exist. The Frenzy is busted. The Ghost against rifles is really good too. Don't even get me started on sheriffs.
Unless you're saving for an operator, Valorant players are essentially able to buy every other round, which does, in a sense, make the game more exciting to watch. Overall, we see fewer rounds where a team gets absolutely rolled because they only have pistols or SMGs, and hard economic resets just aren't nearly as common as they are in Counter-Strike. And in Valorant, hero rifles have proven to be extremely effective against full buys. Last year, Run It Back, a Valorant analytics and news site, posted some stats regarding the success rate of teams who purchased a single rifle. Now, I'll be honest, this post features a lot of numbers, and it's kind of hard to look at because it's Valorant, so I figured there's nobody better tasked to break it down for us than my boy Colton. Sorry, dude.
And now, the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Sorry. What do you mean? I've written tons of code to do statistical analysis just for fun, so this is... Oh, God. I really am a turbo
Turbo
dork,
dork.
aren't I? Well, I guess we'll just break these numbers down, one section at a time. First, where did they come from? That would be courtesy Demars DeRover, an analyst for NRG with a history of collating statistical data from the internet. The data on more than 3,000 rounds of pro play comes from Run It Back GG and their 2D replay feature, which is actually super neat. You should go check it out. It goes without saying that Demars is a pretty smart guy. So even though I haven't seen all the raw data for myself, I think we're in pretty safe hands here. So without further ado, let's take a look at the graphs. Demars broke the different buy options into 7 categories. If you want to see the most popular buy options and their corresponding win rates in each category, they're all in the graphic, so definitely check that out if you want some more depth on each of these. Each round in these statistics is against a team with a full buy, at least 5 Vandals or Phantoms, and optional Operators or Odins. From the attacking side, we see a pretty steady increase in win rate as you give the attackers more firepower. That seems pretty obvious. What is very interesting is that we get dangerously close to a 50% win rate with only 2 primary rifles, and hit that mark before we actually get to a full buy. One thing I've seen mentioned on Reddit and Twitter with this data is the use of agent abilities, especially ultimates helping to influence this number, which certainly holds a lot of merit. But Dimitri is going to talk more about that later. I think it also underscores just how useful guns like the Spectre and Sheriff can really be in the right hands, even against rifles. Now, you might be thinking, what's up with the win rate being higher with 1 or 2 less rifles on the team? And that's where those little lines at the end of the graph come in. They're called error bars, and saving you all the math for how they're actually calculated, they show how confident we can be in a particular statistic. No matter how large your sample size is, it will always be just that, a sample size. The smaller the sample size, the less confident we can be that the data is an accurate representation of the real world. Even with this margin for error, it's clearly still not a massive hit to the attacking team's chances in the next round if you lose your Vandal and are forced back to something like the Spectre, at least in pro play. On the defending side, we see a decline in the pistol save wins versus a full buy, as well as a much sharper increase once you start adding SMGs and a hero rifle or 2, actually surpassing a 50% win rate, which just goes to show the defender-sided nature of tactical shooters. But another possible factor to this is that the defenders have a little more flexibility than the attackers to choose angles and gunfights that better suit their current loadout, to help get the most out of something like the Spectre or Judge. The point from earlier around agent abilities making up for a lack of rifles also stands on defense as well. So does all this data mean you should just be throwing caution to the wind and going for that clutch every time instead of saving your rifle? Well, no, obviously not. But it does show that if your team is sitting around 11,000 credits, then you should be able to put together a very competitive buy the next round, which may make the option to try and fish for even 1 extra kill all the more enticing.
And that was the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
But despite being more fun for us, the viewers, we decided to ask the pros what they think. Did Riot's update back in 2020 really change the way that they view the game?
Before, I felt like everyone would go for every scenario, so even if it was like a 2v5, 3v5, they would always go for it because they know they're going to be rich the next round. But I figured lately, more people are saving, and it's obviously a smarter choice because I know there's a stat that says if 3 or more people have guns, like the success rate of a round is basically the same. So yeah, I do believe that with that update, saving should be taken more seriously. Like, you shouldn't go for every scenario like a 3v5 or even 3v4. If someone's low, then you shouldn't go for it and just save.
But for other players, they didn't really notice a difference in their saving habits.
I think if you're gonna save, you're either saving because you have enough money to buy somebody else on your team who doesn't have enough the next round, or you're like next round you're gonna save anyway, so or like low buy like eco round, and then you just have that extra gun. It's like a hero rifle that you could possibly pop off and win the round. So I don't really think it changed much, honestly.
Now, ranked is obviously a much different environment compared to pro play, but there is one thing that's static across both of them, and it's something we haven't really touched on yet: ult economy. Each and every agent in Valorant has their own unique ultimate ability that can either help set up their team for success or maybe just net them a couple of kills. And for certain agents, like Jet or Chamber, their ults can actually replace the need to even buy rifles, which can massively impact their team's economy. If you're in a situation where only 3 or 4 members of your team can afford to buy a gun, and you have your ults, please be a good teammate, drop a rifle, and use your ultimate. This allows your team to have many more competitive buys. Even an agent like Raze can buy a Frenzy and ult and have just as much impact on a round as if they'd bought a rifle.
And there goes Whippy though, and yeah, he needs to respond. That's a great response so far. 2 more players to go. He's got 1 bullet left in the tour de force, and there's 2 players. Oh, he's found it. Oh, he gets the double as well for the round. The Red Bull clutch out of El Diablo.
So is saving actually worth it in Valorant? We know that Riot went out of their way to give players more incentive to go for those sick clutches, but the impact may not have been as universal as they'd intended. Saving guns or going for clutches is, and always will be, situational. If your team is in a position where they can still afford to buy guns the following round, then you might as well go for it. What we do know is because of the economy and ultimates in this game, they're going to be able to purchase weapons pretty often. And the stats show that you should be buying at least something nearly every round. Whether it's a proper rifle or just an upgraded pistol is up to you. But you can do some real damage with nearly any weapon in Valorant. So get out there and start shooting. I was gonna say, like, it serves no other purpose. In Valorant, it serves no other purpose other than cheesing off the guy you knife, which I guess in a sense does serve a purpose, right? Like, you do chalk their mental. Like, you definitely chalk a dude's mental if you knife him.
You don't gain anything. They lose something.
Yeah.
A piece of themselves.
The problem is that
which, let's be honest, they don't have much left.
No, if they're a Valorant player, man, they don't really, there's not much left. A League player who switched to Valorant.
Oh, God. Those poor bastards.
Those poor bastards. Clap.